everyone, I'm your host Kaitlyn Daniel, creator of Sci-Fi Leadership, and if you're new here, welcome. I specialize in empowering leaders as they navigate how to best support mental health and well-being in our schools. Today's episode is part 2 of our monthly book review series, and this month we're reviewing Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle, written in 2019 by sisters and authors Emily and Amelia Nagoski. This book is dedicated to all the givers out there, so if you're someone who works in the field of education, I think you qualify. Let's get started. This book is dedicated for any woman who has felt overwhelmed and exhausted by everything she had to do, and yet still worried she was not doing enough, which is every woman we know, including us. So Burnout was written by two sisters, one of them with a PhD and the other one with a DMA, both of them highly interested in women experiencing stress and the burnout cycle and how to where it comes from, how it persists, and how to overcome it. I know as a woman, I deeply resonated with this book when it came out in 2019. I actually found it during my second year of teaching, and I was starting to have a very hard time navigating stress. I started searching for answers or something someone could tell me that they resonated also with feeling stress, or if they were worried that it was burnout. And I remember feeling like, I'm only my second year into teaching. How could I possibly be this burned out, be this stressed already, be this exhausted? And that's when I found Emily and Amelia's book, Burnout, mostly because I was searching for my own answers and I needed something tangible to tell me what to do with all this stress that I was dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And I will say this book does give a great overview of, from a woman's perspective, both historically, over the centuries and years of patriarchy and marginalization of women, although they do capture women very, very broadly in this book, mostly because they tie it to references. And a lot of the women that we've studied historically, when we have studied women in the past, has been affluent white women, so it is good to make an asterisk note. And that's with any time you read research that's been done, decades ago. You just have to kind of know that that's the population we're talking about. And we haven't really looked at many of the other populations, but that's something that those of us in the medical, social sciences, and science fields need to do more of course. But this book does give a great job at doing a kind of historical overview of why for women we get caught in this burnout cycle and why it persists in women in particular. Not that it's not in men, but I feel like women have a lot to juggle, and they explain it very well, that women have a lot to juggle in terms of what's expected, like especially in terms of, should you be a mom, should you not be a mom, are you working, are you not working, are you like what is your role, while trying to also discover what you want your role to be while navigating societal and cultural pressures that you may be experiencing. So they do a great job at giving an overview of that. As you know though, this book is kind of short, so they only can go so deeply into what we know about women's experiences in terms of stress and burnout, especially when navigating societal, cultural expectations and workplace norms. That being said, they do rely on scientific reasons as to why our bodies carry stress when we're in stressful situations, and kind of how that stress builds up over time. And I know for me, as someone who was experiencing high levels of stress, I felt like on a daily basis, to the point where I wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating right, and I had no outlet for my stress. This book basically gave me permission to do some tangible actions and told me what to do to release that stress, and explained why my body was holding on to it so much. So it really allowed me to prioritize that exercise and nutrition are highly important, especially when you're navigating a high stress job. So I will say those are two tangible pieces that you can take away from this book. My biggest critique for this book is that all of part 2, basically they sum up why women feel this way in our society is due to the patriarchy. And not that I don't disagree that it's important to name patriarchy, sexism, racism, basically all of the isms, but I just feel like all of part 2 is, the theme is F the patriarchy, and it doesn't go much deeper into that. Like, I feel like that section could have been a lot larger, or its own book, to take a deep dive into why the systems that the patriarchy has created for women in terms of societal norms and expectations has led to being overly stressed and burnt out. So I will say that's my largest critique. I wish they had spent more time on giving women tangible tools to help them manage their stress and burnout, or to figure out if, like, what is burnout, how do you know you have burnout, and things like that. So creating more like a tangible tool guide. But I really don't think that's what they were going for. But it has beautiful writing filled with humor and science and references, and you know I love my references in my books, especially when they put them nice and labeled in the back. That way you can trace back through those and look them up yourself, which I love. Another thing that I love about this book is at the back of each chapter, they have a TLDR section where they put into nuggets what that main chapter was about and give suggestions on which ones to share to your friends and colleagues who are also in your spaces. And I think that's great, especially if you have someone who's burnt out and stressed, and the thought of reading a novel and recommending to that person to read is just really, really taxing, and you know that it might not be very helpful to them. It gives you that TLDR. That way you can be the reference guide to the women in your spaces. Especially as a leader, I think that might be very helpful to help someone navigate through this work without actually having to read this work, and to just get the key highlights and takeaways. So I think it's written in a way that if a leader uses this, you can use it to be empowering for other women in your circle, whether it's in your personal or professional life. And like I said, overall, it is beautifully written and filled with so much humor meshed in between all of the references that I definitely give this a 4 out of 5 on our FIRE rating. It's full of unique gems alongside the references. There's plenty of humor. And so if you're a woman, whether you're in leadership or not, but if you're in any profession at all where you feel like you're a giver and you have to give over your compassion and your empathy and your energy, I think this book was written with you in mind. And if you also feel that way, know that you are not alone. And I feel like this book does an excellent job at, even from afar, I know I'm only one person and I know I'm reading that book, but I feel like the authors explained what it's like to be a woman navigating our modern society in a way that is deeply touching, hilariously funny, and wicked brilliant. All right, if you'd like to see more educational mental health content and more book reviews, please subscribe to this amazing YouTube channel. We have book reviews happening every month, and so if you've read this, let me know, or if you have any other recommendations that you'd like me to read in future videos, please leave those in the comments below. Thank you so much. Take care.